If you're looking for a pro wrestling podcast with taste, Buster Unmasked is the only podcast for you, where real pro wrestlers talk real pro wrestling and no bullshit allowed. All right, y'all. It's a brand new year. We're here. We're live. You're watching Buster Unmasked. You can see it above my head. 2024. We kicking this thing off right tonight. Very first day of the year. We're here. Look, do not forget, every night at 10 p.m. Central Time, go to the Genesis TV network, and you can catch Buster Unmasked live right there on Genesis TV. Be sure to check it out on Roku, Fire Stick. They have a website. Go support us. The more support we get, the better it is for us, man. Genesis TV network. Do not miss it. All right, y'all. Today,
you there?
I'm doing some echoing. All right, it's gone now. We had a little echo for a minute, y'all. Look, today it's all about Thomas Daryl Bruff or Daryl Thomas Bruff. It's Daryl Bruff, but on Facebook it's Thomas Bruff. So we got them both. Daryl, dude, it's been about
Buster?
Man, it's great to have you here. It's good to have you back. It's been about 6 months since you let out a statement, man. You put out a statement that said you were at the end of 2023, you were cutting it loose, man. You were going to be done. You was going to retire. I know you got a new grandbaby, and I know you want to go spend time with that grandbaby. But
He's
is that still?
Too, ain't he?
Yes, I seen pictures, man. Beautiful little baby, man. But look, I know how the wrestling business is. I know it's hard to get out of it. Are you still done? Are you still out, or has things changed some?
I'm still both.
Okay.
I'm still in it a little bit and doing things. I have some people that's took several of the responsibilities from me. That's helped. I'm pretty much just overseeing. My webmaster doing the booking the talent now and things. And you know, I'm still looking in it and still got one eye on it all the time. But as far as physically sitting here on the computer and having to do a lot of things I used to do, I do not do it no more, because he's created a system for us that is tremendous. I mean, I really don't have to do nothing till about 3 days before the taping.
Well, I imagine that helps you out a bunch, dude. Look, like me and you were chatting a little bit before we went on, and like I told you, just dealing with this podcast, man, sometimes it's a headache. Sometimes it's a hassle. I can imagine you having to deal with the talent, all the talent you deal with, all your customers, all your production, every bit of your staff, from referees to whoever, man. Tell us about that. Before you got this help and you got this delegated out, how much work, how many hours a week do you think you spent making sure Liberty Pro Women's Wrestling was the product you wanted it to be?
Buster, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I would say average 30 to 40 hours a week.
That's really a little less than I would have figured. But that's still a full-time job during the week.
Oh yeah, it is. But you know, I don't count. I'm not counting riding down to the building, checking things, taking stuff down there that comes in. I'm just talking about sitting right here dead in front of this computer. It was a good 30 to 40 hours a week.
Dude, I understand that fully.
And I'm already retired from a shoot job career. I've been retired 3.5 years, so I was going to be retiring again, but not so fast yet.
You just didn't realize apparently the wrestling was your shoot job, huh?
Yeah.
There you go, man. I understand fully, dude. Like I said, I probably spend, just me, say I do 2 podcasts a week, I probably spend 6-8 hours just on them 2 podcasts, just getting ready for them, building flyers. Tennessee, I hear you. Tell us about it, man. You was talking about it. Tell us what the score is, dude.
The Tennessee score was 35-0 today.
Oh, there you go.
Iowa. We beat them in 2016, and then we beat them again today. So I hope we play Iowa in every bowl game.
So all Tennessee fans are jumping for joy today, right now.
We are. We unveiled our new quarterback of the future today. It's 5 minutes to go in this game. Alabama's fixing to try another field goal. They're up 17-13. I don't mean to get on football, but I am an SEC guy. Some Tennessee people say, well, I can't pull for Alabama. Well, then you're looking at it for the wrong reason, because if Alabama wins the whole thing, the SEC gets more money, and each team gets more money from the SEC. So, that's the way I look at it. I look at everything business.
Well, there you go, man. You way more knowledgeable about football than me. I'll be honest with you, though. Especially NFL, they lost me about 25 years ago, man.
Well, I hung around a little longer than that, but when they took that first knee, that was it for me. I'm not going to say I don't peek in on it a little bit, but I don't watch it. I used to wouldn't miss a game, but I ain't that way no more.
I like high school football, to be honest with you. I've got where I really, really like high school football. To me, it's not all the, for better word, the bullshit that comes along with NFL for sure. And even college now is
burnt.
It's a business. It's run. I mean, they've run it like a business, just like the NFL. Look, man, speaking of business, man, you're knowledgeable about football, but you're somewhat of a pro wrestling historian. You know a lot about old school pro wrestling, right?
Well, I've been around it a long time. I didn't see it, but it was told in my hometown of Union City 1,000 times by many people. My mother hit Danny Dusick in the head with one of my milk bottles, 2 years old, at the old National Guard Armory down on Main Street.
There you go, man.
And
part of history.
Actually, at her funeral, the preacher told that story about my mother doing that. And she was banned from going to wrestling in Union City for the rest of her life.
Wow, that's crazy,
but
man.
It wasn't these plastic things like they got nowadays. It was a pure old
glass bottle,
milk bottle, like you and I grew up on. And but anyway, I got to go. Me and my dad went just about every Thursday night in Union City, no matter if it was at the old National Guard Armory or at the Berry Brothers building, or they went out to the fairgrounds for a little while. But we were there just about every Thursday night. I've known Eugene Edmiston since I was a little boy, Gene Hall. And he all that. I went to school with Coco, and we actually played the tubas together in the band in the 7th and 8th grade. But after that, he went to football, and I got told by the football coach I either was a baseball player or a football player. So I love baseball more, and it was baseball season. So needless to say, I went to baseball practice and was told not to come back, even though for the next 3 years he begged me to come back to the football team. I said, no, I'm a baseball player. You told me that. And baseball was my sport. I mean, I was blessed in baseball. I made All-Stars a few times, and I loved it. And it's still, outside of wrestling, probably my number one thing. Football too. I don't care nothing about NBA. I'll watch I will watch some NBA. I told a story. I watched the Grizzlies for one reason. I like listening to Pete Branica announce. I think he's an excellent announcer. And but outside that, I don't care much for the NBA, all the politics and crap they got. But outside of soccer and hockey, I know a little bit about a lot of things in sports. I ain't gonna say I know it all, because I'd be lying to you. But when I was a kid,
No, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say. No, I'm just
going to say, when I was a kid, it was really awesome. Leonard Fielding was a friend of my folks, and I would get to ride the bus down to Jackson and spend the weekend with him and Miss Fielding, and they'd usually run a spot show somewhere like Savannah or something like that. And then my dad or mom one would drive down on Sunday and pick me up and take me back home. And he used to have a wrestling ring out in his front yard. He lived in a 2-story house with like 6 columns. last I saw in Jackson, it was still there. It's out there by the shooting range. And there was an old wrestling ring in his front yard. And I guess as a kid, just like a lot of kids, I got hooked on wrestling, you know. And Alan and William Stone's daddy, Levon Stone, of course, I go so far back. He was Heinrich von Bowler when I first saw him wrestle. And I got asked in Leonard Field, and as a kid, probably about 5, 6 years old, I said, that guy's on TV as Levon Stone on Channel 13, but he's Heinrich von Bowler here. Why is he not the same person?
What was his answer, man? What did he tell you?
His answer was, I got to check into that there. I got to check into that.
Hey, we got this kid out here. He's asking kayfabe stuff, man. What do I tell him? Well, look, man, that's got to be cool for you. You got to grow up watching a lot of live wrestling, a lot of, like I said, at Union City, Jackson sometimes.
Yeah.
When you were young, growing up, that time when I'm assuming that's when wrestling kind of put its hooks into you right then.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like every.
I've been hooked ever since. You couldn't get a hook out of me if you wanted to.
Well, look, then take me back and tell me when you was a kid going to live shows, what's your absolute favorite match that you ever got to see?
That's a good question, because I saw so many of them. I was blessed. I mean, I saw Sputnik and Norvell when Norvell started out. I saw Coco when he started, and Albert Ramsey from Cydonia, Tennessee. Let me come back to that one, because, like I say, I do have many, but they're all good. They're all good. And Buddy Hack used to come out of Paducah, and the theory was with Buddy Hack that if he'd get hit in the head 2 or 3 times in a match, he'd go crazy. And it was one of the best gimmicks ever, because he literally had everybody believing he was crazy, and he would go all over that old National Guard armory. Trash cans would go everywhere. I mean, chairs. He did it before ECW, Memphis, or anybody else.
Right.
And then I got to see Tretch Phillips many times. A lot of people don't probably remember Tretch. He's a little short guy, about 5'8", 5'9", but he was one tough son of a gun.
Man, I actually worked a lot with Tretch's son.
Yeah,
in the early 90s, mid 90s, up till about 2000, actually. Worked with him a lot around the Oklahoma border.
Right.
A lot on up in Arkansas, man. Really cool dude, man.
Well, his dad was his dad was losing his eyesight his last few years, and honestly, I'm not sure if he ever lost it completely before he passed on. But he was just one tough little dude. And we had Jesse Morales. I don't know if you remember Jesse Morales or not.
Mexican. No, I think it's a little before my time there, Daryl.
Well, thank you, Buster. I appreciate that.
I ain't trying to age you there. I ain't trying to put a number to you, but hey, I ain't far behind you, man. I'll be honest with you, but it's just a little before my time, dude.
We had old Sapphire Smith that used to come out of Dyersburg, and Jerry Barber. And, oh, darn, there was one on my tip of my tongue I was going, one of my favorite things was Bob Gillian was a sergeant on the Jackson Police Department. But he refereed in Union City, and his gimmick name was Muley Gonzalez. I'll never forget it. If I got Alzheimer's, I'd remember that name. And Bob had gotten pot-bellied over the year, like most of us old men. And but he was awesome. I mean, one of the nicest guys I ever met. And I think Bob used to wrestle before he started refereeing. I'm pretty sure that's right. Hopefully, maybe William or Alan Stone's on here and they can clarify that. But he was very good, very comical. Corsica Joe used to come to Union City a lot. Sarah Lee, his wife, oh my God, was she a hoot. And then Cora Combs would come, Sylvia Hackney, and Jeanette, all those come to Union City when Leonard was promoting. And Leonard go ahead.
Well, Sarah Lee, she worked until up into the 90s. She worked for Burt in around Nashville in the early to mid 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, her and Joe both, until they died, used to work the old Nashville Fairgrounds arena. I sit and talked to Corsica Joe one night, almost the whole show. I could have cared less about wrestling going on, because me and him were having a time talking about the good old days. And of course, he used to team with his brother, and they were big all over the Southeast, Florida, Atlanta, other places. Corsica Gene and Corsica Joe.
Well, look, you said that you actually went to school a little bit with Coco, and you got to witness some of his first matches, early career. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. I've got a ton of old footage, man, and I'd been going through it and looking, man. And when you go back to them early '80s matches with Coco Ware, man, Coco was one of the very best. I believe one of the very best at that time ever. Period, man. He could wrestle, he could fly, he had charisma. Coco, the people who know Coco from the WWF Birdman,
yeah,
they don't know how
Coco.
Good. They don't know how good Coco really was, man.
That's
and I
true.
done forgot, man. I growed up on Coco, Memphis Wrestling, man, all that old stuff, Stagger Lee, all that. And when I done forgot about all that, I guess. And when I went to going through that old Memphis footage, man, and I got to where I was, most of it I wouldn't do a lot with. I'd just record and just glance over it so I'd make sure the recording good. But I got to watching these old matches of Coco. Man, that dude could go. He could go 100%. He's one of the best in the world at that time.
He threw one of the top 3 drop kicks in the world. Jeff Jarrett was one of the other ones. Jeff Jarrett threw one of the top 3 in the world, in my opinion.
Right.
And but Coco, when he went, him and Norvell tagged up as the PYTs, Pretty Young Things, they were awesome. And I mean, they could get heat as good as anybody, and especially in the Mid-South Coliseum, because I saw them security guys have to basically cover them up to get them to the back.
Yeah, man. Hey, Norvell's a hell of a talent, man.
He was.
Him and Dennis Condrey was a good team. Norvell kind of gets overlooked. Coco kind of, he got to go on and go to the WWF, but Norvell kind of faded out about that same time,
Yeah.
And he's kind of got lost in history, other than people who know. Norvell was he was a hell of a talent, man.
He was. And him and Sputnik together were awesome.
Speaking of Sputnik, I actually worked with Sputnik's son during the 90s. A bunch, man. Same places up around the Arkansas, up in Arkansas, up around Oklahoma, in Missouri some. He was a cool dude, man. I wish I'd have been alive early enough to actually meet Sputnik.
Well, if you'd been as old as me, you would have.
Dude, everybody talks about Sputnik Monroe and how cool Sputnik was, man.
It really was. And Mario Galento, I loved Mario Galento. He had that gypsy look, and man, he could draw some heat.
Right. Well, look, let's bust some myths right now.
All right.
Mario Galento, is that not who supposedly Jerry Jarrett pulled his eye out? He tried to, didn't he try to get him and Lawler at 2 different times? One at the Coliseum or one at a house show, and Jerry Jarrett on TV?
That's how the story goes.
That's what I'm saying. Let's bust some myths. You were on.
I'm not going. I didn't witness it, so I can't say. But if you listen to the stories, that's the stories.
What do you think about that old territorial style? Really, it's a story, and unless you were there, I don't guess you'll really ever know the truth. But things like that went on in the pro wrestling business back in those days. It wasn't all roses like it is now. These guys really were territorial about not only their territory, but their spots in the business too. And they would go all out to keep those spots.
They sure did.
I can see it, dude. I can see it happening. You know, whether the eye actually got pulled out or not, I guess we'll. It's a good story. I can tell you that, man.
Well, I know this, that Jerry Jarrett always had the reputation for having a bad eye throughout his career. And I remember somebody, I think it might have been Dundee and Landell, went after that eye on Channel 5, and Lance even made a reference to him having a real bad left eye because of a previous injury years ago.
Right.
So Lance was probably just selling it too. And speaking of Lance, I don't care what anybody says, there's no better, or wasn't no better, and hasn't been any better than Lance Russell in my lifetime.
Dude, let me tell you something. I actually had him call a few of my matches in 1997 on USWA, and then in 2000 when Kick-Ass Wrestling became Memphis Championship Wrestling, the WWE developmental deal, Lance came in, and I actually got to commentate one time with him and David Jett, man. Lance Russell. Awesome. That's dude. Look, one of my main goals in life was to have Lance Russell call just one of my matches. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No matter what it was, dude. Lance is I mean, for me, Lance will always be the announcer. He'll always be the voice of Memphis, Tennessee.
The first time I met Lance, I used to go to the Coliseum with guys, and we'd sit up in like the lodge seats, you know, the middle seats there.
Right.
And then me and a guy named Sam Lowe got to be real good friends. And Sam took Cornette's place taking pictures at the Coliseum around the ring. And me and Sam, we started riding together. I would go in, my Monday consisted of going into work and being there at 4 o'clock, unloading the truck, help put all the groceries up, try to get out by 4 o'clock on that afternoon. Sam would pick me up. We would drive to Memphis. We would stop at El Chico's over on Poplar and Highland and eat every Monday night. And then we would go to the Coliseum. Well, when we first started doing that, Eddie used to put me up there to sit by Lance. You know, you had the old guy ring the bell. I think it was Father Lawler's ex-father-in-law at one time or something, Paula's husband, but I'm not sure about that. And then you had Lance and you had the other guy there and all that. And I got to sit at the very end of the desk. And actually later on, as they grew up, Kevin and Brian used to sit like almost right behind me on that corner there on the babyface side. And so eventually I got talking to Eddie more and more, started selling tickets for him in Jackson, Tennessee at my grocery store I run. And then Eddie started letting me hang around with him at the back. And we would sit back there and prop up 2 chairs against that old wall at the Coliseum right beside the dressing rooms.
Right.
And that's where I probably learned more about wrestling, sitting there talking to Eddie than anybody.
Well, look, man, tell us about. All right, now look, the first time I ever went to the Coliseum, I want to say 9, fixing to turn 10. Lawler, Dundee, Loser Leave Town, Moondogs, and the Fabulous Ones. And man, I was amazed. Look, my brother, his wife took me and her brother out on the interstate, like before, even out on the road going to the Coliseum, man. When we got there, it was like it took 2 hours to get from there into the Coliseum, into the parking lot. So full. They actually had to, now we're 10, I'm 10 and he's probably 14, but they had to let us out because the show had actually already, the first match was already going. Man, we got out, 2 kids. We went up, we had our tickets, went in. We could only find 2 empty seats, period, at the very top of the Coliseum on each side of this guy smoking a joint right there in the Coliseum. But man,
well, if you did it today, there'd be more than one there smoking a joint.
Man, let me tell you something, Daryl. It was the most amazing thing. I think I was already hooked on wrestling, but I think that's the night I probably decided this is what I want to try to do. Man, Let me tell you something. I'd never seen talk about emotion in wrestling. Lawler Dundee, and there's this spot, and they show them, used to show them regular, this uppercut spot. Dundee chop blocks Lawler. Lawler takes one. Good, nice bump over everything. He finally feeds up. Dundee hits him with a second one. Lawler takes that bump, man. The crowd is just the wind's out of them. Lawler feeds up. Dundee sets up. He goes for that third one, and this perfectly uppercut from Lawler. Timing was awesome, dude. Lawler, Dundee charges in. Lawler hits that uppercut, and Dundee does this, stand straight up and does this delayed fall. But in unison, when Lawler hit that uppercut, every person in the Coliseum had the exact same reaction and emotion all at the same time. There wasn't little parts here. We're doing this. Everybody went, ooh. And that right there, that's what I remember more than anything about it, is realizing, man, how talented those guys had to be to have. I'd never seen that many people be focused in on one thing to that level where their reactions were all the exact same at the same time for the same stuff. Right. And that's the night I probably decided that, hey, man, this is for me. You know, I love this. But you, man, you spent a lot of time back in the Coliseum at the older, before my time. Tell us about some of them old crowds at the Coliseum and how it was to just be there in some of them legendary matches, man.
Well, the thing sitting there by Lance, your number one job was to guard that little black lady with the walking cane over there on the corner, because she would try to come through where the gate opened up for the baby faces to come in, and Lance had hit me. Go get her. And the first time I was like, what? And then I realized what it was, and I'd have to help the security guards get her back to her seat, but it didn't last long. She was right back up and ready to go again. But she loved her wrestling. I think the Commercial Appeal even actually did a story on that lady once.
I think so.
Years and years and years ago now. But you sit there and then they come out and get on the table. I was there the night Savage Power Drive Ricky Morton through the table, but I wasn't sitting with Lance. I was up in the lodge seat. And at that time, that was one of the most impressive things I ever saw, because them old wood tables at the Coliseum, they wasn't little but wood. They were wood.
Yes.
And if Ricky Morton ever was going to have a broken neck, it would have been that night.
Yeah, you ain't lying about those, man. Them Lance's announcer table, that table wasn't made to be broken. I can tell you that, man. No. If you broke it, you had to put some effort into it. And
you remember Joe LeDuc, threw Lawler out of the ring, and he landed on that table. And if I'm not wrong, he was out of action. I'd have to go back and rethink here a minute, but I seemed like he was out of action like 6 months with that.
Well, let me ask you something, Daryl. Talking about these fans, man. Nowadays fans don't get that emotionally involved in the wrestling. What do you think attributes to that? Let me ask you this: is it the characters, or is it the action? Or obviously, I think it's probably a little bit of both. But fans just do not invest like they used to into wrestling and wrestlers.
You're right, and I see that a lot. I will say this, though. I was at Jackson 2 weeks ago at Tennessee Championship Wrestling. I think it's on like the 16th.
Right.
And those fans reminded me of old fans more than anywhere I've seen lately. And then EPW on the Saturday night before that, they did the same thing. His crowd was down that night because that was when the tornadoes and all that was coming through. So he's lucky he had a building, to be honest, because it come down that close that way. Huh? Do what?
TCW just had a show. I think TCW just had a show Saturday, and they had a nice crowd from what I've seen.
They had a good crowd again. And that was a paying show. Right. So a lot of people don't realize that they were paying. The other one was free. It was a thank you show or something like that,
Yeah, I think it was a a Christmas show. You know how people do. I know Santa Claus was there on the one on the 16th of December, but this past week, I'm like you.
Yeah. He decked Bam Bundy.
Hey, the crowd returned for them, and that's what that tells you the story, because you can get a crowd with a free show, but seeing how many actually come back is what tells you the story on that free show. And I seen some footage, man. They had a hell of a crowd this past Saturday.
Yeah, they did good. I was proud of them, and I like EPW, what they're doing down there. I do want to go to one of these shows here in Memphis, the 901, I think it's called. I've not been to one of the shows, but I've seen highlights, and everything I see looks good. And their building was full the other night.
Hey, 901 has some of the best production value. I mean, short of Dustin and EPW, 901 to not have TV, to do most of their stuff on YouTube and stuff, man, they got some of the best production value of any company around. I like 901, man. I think they just need I don't know whether it's the arena or whether, I just don't know.
Could be location, because they're down on Cleveland. And, honestly, I don't go downtown Memphis anymore. I want to. I want to go to a Tiger game this year, and I want to go to one Grizzly game, even though I'm not a big fan, but I would like to go to one game. But outside of that, I just don't feel safe going downtown. And I mean, I've got protection, but I still don't feel safe, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you, dude. Well, let me ask you this. Let's talk about some of the local products. You mentioned EPW. I'm a huge fan of EPW. I'll be honest. To me, out of the TV companies we have, I feel like EPW is the closest thing we have to good Southern wrestling. It's not too flashy. They got nice production. They got nice ring. They got great talent. It feels like real wrestling.
You're saying EPW in Boonville, correct?
Yes, sir. EPW in Boonville.
I agree with you 100%. I think of all the local shows, I'd probably have to put them just a notch above anybody else.
Well, look, I like Dustin's show, but you're talking about two different kinds of shows. To me, Memphis wrestling is more 80s WWF style, where to me, EPW is more along the lines of the Memphis wrestling we growed up on, or even WCW or something like that. It's more of a homespun Southern wrestling. It's not so overdone. The one thing about Memphis wrestling sometimes to me is everything's just so over the top.
Yeah, and like you asked me a question before we got on there, and I do not mean this bad, because me and Dustin have had heat since August of 2020, I guess it is, maybe 2021. And I don't mean this bad, but the biggest thing of what I've saw of Memphis wrestling, because I ain't watched 3 whole shows, but what I have seen, Dustin wants to be the star and not let his talent be the star. That's just my personal opinion. The way he waves his hands and everything, you never saw Lance do very much of that. And when he did, it was really something serious.
Right.
Like Joe LeDuc just dropped a concrete block over somebody's head or something. But what I'm saying is it's got to be about the talent. And that you mentioned earlier, you said, I don't see many pictures of you or nothing. I don't want you to. I want you to see my talent, because these girls, like this lineup I'm looking up here right now, you think people want to see me, or they want to see April Hunter? You think people want to see me, or they want to see Maddie Max? Little bit, $1 Million Baby. I mean, they're two of my biggest stars. They could, if they wanted to, I guarantee you, them 2 girls could go work anywhere in America right now.
Right.
But it's not about me. It's not about my wife. It's not about Johnny Morton on the camera or Russell Goff doing the, changing cameras and all that. It's not about Poker Face when he's there. And God, I love Poker Face like a kid, and so I do Johnny too. But it's about them. It's about the girls, because I look at Raw and all these shows, every once in a while, and me and my wife will sit there. Oh, you remember when she was here? You know, Gigi Golan in NXT was Priscilla Kelly. She wrestled for us twice.
Right.
You know, Sarah Bridges, who's the what do you call them? What are they? What's that gimmick they got? The the guy with a long beard, and where's the Viking Raiders?
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. You had me lost for a second, but I know exactly who you're talking about now. Used to be Sarah Logan.
Yeah,
she used to be Sarah Logan.
She wrestled for us 2 or 3 times. I mean, it's just amazing to look at these channels and see these girls that's wrestled for us over the years. Mercedes, like I told you, Sasha Banks, she wrestled here twice with us. It's been many of them, and I'm proud to tell everybody they wrestled here. Not put a feather in our cap. They did not need Liberty Pro, but I'm sure coming here and wrestling and getting to wrestle other girls, and it's like Sue Young. And by the way, Sue Young's been with me since day one. She was in my first 3 ever matches that I filmed back in 2007. Wow. Sue Young, Tasha Simone. But what I'm gonna say is it's to see them grow. Our whole point of doing this was to help women's wrestling. 2007. Do you think you saw ladies wrestling on TV like you do now, or on house shows like you do? No, they'd work. They'd go and get $10, a hot dog, and a Coke, and sent home because they were a special attraction. Well, now they are the attraction,
right?
And that people don't understand how much that means to me, because I feel like we may only be 1%, but that's 1% we contributed to the growth of wrestling. Ladies wrestling. When I started in 1997, we made them all wear one-piece suits, tights, boots. Everybody said, that don't work. That won't work. That won't work. Well, you know what? The WWE girls wasn't wearing tights then. The AEW wasn't in existence, but WCW wasn't. All of a sudden, all these women started wearing tights again to look professional, like Debbie Combs used to look, like some of the other girls from back in the day, Ann Jeanette, Korska, Sarah Lee's wife. Korska Joe's wife, Sarah Lee. Right. All of them did. And then everybody said, oh, that's stupid. People ain't going to like it. 90% of the requests we got now is make sure they wear tights.
Yeah, man, I can see that.
It's little things like that we help contribute, and it's never been about us, and it's never going to be. When it has to, I'm out.
I hear you. Let me ask you this, Daryl. I've actually got a graphic, and I think this contributes a lot to why Liberty Pro is as successful as it is. Y'all got your next taping is going to be in February, right?
Yes, sir.
Let me pull this graphic up, and we'll give everybody a little taste of why I think Liberty Pro is head and shoulders above everybody else doing custom pro wrestling. Here's the thing. Me and you had this conversation before. When you look at that card, when I look at that card and these people on it, even the guys, I feel like that's something I would go to the casino, go to Las Vegas and see. I feel like it's not lowbrow. It feels high end to me. And that, yes, we had this conversation. I don't see why y'all do not try to get a deal at one of the casinos, maybe once every 2 or 3 months. I think you'd make a shitload of money, dude.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
And this here is a graphic of your. What's the actual date on it? When is your tape? And
February the 10th.
Okay, now February I understand 10th. There's a cutoff for ordering these matches. So tell everybody when the cutoff is.
Like February the 2nd, Groundhog Day.
Okay, there you go. Run them through again, Daryl. I know you did it the last time you were on, but it's been several months ago. Kind of anybody who's interested in purchasing a custom match, kind of take them through the steps they need to do to be able to do that.
All right. Well, we've changed it up a little bit, and it's all better for everybody, including the customer. we got on our website, there's a place to go. Of course, the card will be there, but there's a link you push and you can fill out your match there. Everything you want from beginning to end. In other words, what you want them to wear, how long, a referee or not, who you want in the match, if you want gimmicks used or anything like that. It's all on that form, and then you put what holds and moves you want to see, and then they hit submit. Well, that submit goes to our spreadsheet. I take it off, and then it comes to me, the match they sent in. I send it to the girls to approve. Like other day, we had some guy wanting somebody to smell butts or something. You know, I sent it back. I said, we don't do that stuff, sir. Go find somebody else.
Right.
You know, that ain't our cup of tea. We do professional wrestling and nothing
and
else.
that's another thing that sets y'all apart. That lifts Liberty Pro up above a lot of the other companies, because a lot of them do that, and a lot of them do even more than that. You know, if someone's willing to put out the money, they'll do whatever. And I think that's why this is a more professional product. And here's the thing, Daryl. You know, last time we talked about this, it kind of struck me as there's a lot of people out there that would love to fantasy book wrestling matches. There's a lot of fantasy bookers out there that would love to actually be able to book an actual wrestling match. And this is a way to kind of give these kind of people an opportunity to be the control, have the pencil, talent.
Exactly, Buster.
You know, they can pick the talent, they can pick the style of match, they can pick what things they want to see and don't want to see. It's pretty cool. I had never been really I knew about customs, but I didn't know much about the inner workings until me and you talked. And you know, it's really kind of cool. It's really pretty cool. If you're somebody out there who dreams of booking a wrestling match, your talent the way you want them, man, this is a dream for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
you know,
and you know, a lot of people say, well, you're exposing the business. I can't expose something, Buster. It's already been exposed for 40 years since Vince McMahon was on Phil Donahue.
I don't think there's nothing left to expose, Daryl. I'm going to be honest with you. What else is left to expose? Everybody knows everything now. That's why nobody. Go ahead, Daryl.
No, I was just going to say right there, I meant to say this 15 minutes ago and it got away from me. But I'm going to tell you the two worst things, in my opinion, that's ever happened to professional wrestling outside of the territories going away is social media is one. That definitely is it. And then two, hold on. Shit. I tell you, it's getting old rough, Buster. But I can't stand the 4K cameras, because if you watch a WWE match, used to the punches look like they were connecting. Now you see they ain't connecting.
Right. When they went to all high def, man, they had a little issue there when they first did that. They had a mandate to everybody to, you know, stiffen up, make sure your shit's laid in, make sure it connects, because these cameras here are for sure going to catch it. You know, without a doubt.
They do. And then you see, and in the dressing room, coming out of the same dressing room, I know in some cases you can't help that, but I don't like that. I still like the heels here, and I'll give Dustin Starr credit on that, and the baby faces over there. I do like that. Always will, always have.
Yeah, I do too. Here's the problem with it now, though. More than likely, everybody knows that damn room connects in the back too. So
they do.
It kind of, you know, I'm like you. Social media has wreaked havoc on pro wrestling, but it also has its benefits. It's just people in general, we bastardize everything. So we always take something that could be used for good and it gets used for bad more than anything else most of the time, you know?
Yes.
And it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool, man. Let me ask you this, Daryl. Let's talk about all these the difference. all right, we've got all these different television wrestling companies,
Mm-hmm.
but most of it, let's just start around our area. You got Memphis Wrestling, Bluff City, EPW, VCA's got a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about these companies opening up and only doing TV and not actually trying to build a territory? Here's the thing, my thought, Daryl. Okay, if you got a TV product and you're making money off of TV, how are your wrestlers making money around here?
A lot of them are.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. And used to be house shows, selling tickets is how the guys were able to make their livings, how they got paid. But to do that, they need to work 4, 5, 6 nights a week. Well,
Yeah.
if you've got a TV company and you're not trying to me, if you're not trying to run the territory, what are you actually doing? You know?
Well, the days of running the territory like you and I grew up in is over. I mean, you're not going to go from Memphis to Louisville to Evansville to a spot show to another spot show to TV5 to Nashville Saturday night. That ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to happen. Number one, I don't think the talent pool's there, because the talent that is worth back when we grew up is either in WWE, AEW, and TNA. And I'm telling you, TNA's a sleeper. They have put on some of the best shows in the last 2 years on television I've seen, or Impact, whatever you want to call it this week. I don't watch much AEW anymore. I can't stand all that flip-flopping. I just cannot stand it. I'm sorry. I'd rather some guy get a guy in a headlock and take his fist and pound him in the forehead 3 times than to watch a guy do a triple somersault off the top rope down to the arena floor and watch him and know in 10 years he ain't gonna be able to walk again.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't really mind. I don't mind the flipping and flopping. I just need it to make sense. I need guys to. Here's the thing: they go through their spots and move so fast that they don't give nobody, even the fans don't. They don't. The wrestlers barely register, sell anything, and obviously, when you're moving that fast, the fans do not have the opportunity to register what just happened. Sometimes you need to do something and give the fans 5, 6, 7, 10 seconds to absorb what they just seen. To draw them into the action.
No, you're right. You're right. And I mean, like, some of them I watch on pay-per-view and I get them just to see what's going on. And the guy dives out of the ropes, then goes around, comes off the top post. And Lucha Libre is just as bad, because I watch a lot of AAA and they're all over the place. I can't keep up with it, so I quit watching it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And it's not enjoyable. When we were a kid, a guy'd get a leg and work it for 5 minutes, and the guy'd get up and couldn't walk for the next 10 minutes of the match, and the guy'd keep going back to it, and then finally figure 4, and it'd be over with. Well, now you have 72 false finishes in matches now. And then, it's like, what's left? I mean, you've done every submission hold there is.
Right. And here's the thing.
I'm sorry. I know I'm old school, but my daddy was 55 when I was born. I was raised old, and I was raised old in wrestling.
I understand that. Here's my thing. Man, it's just... selling is the art of pro wrestling. Selling is what makes people buy the fucking tickets. It ain't really the actual moves I do to you. It's the reaction you give when that move's done to you.
100% correct.
Selling's what makes pro wrestling go around, and I think there's not enough of that. And what selling there is, in a lot of cases, it's really a waste of time, because they don't really sell, they register. Right. And then they're on to the next spot. Where, I mean, if you're going to do something, if you're going to do 3 flips off the top rope to the floor onto a pile of people, I think you probably, once you hit that, I think you should have probably 60 seconds right there to let everybody absorb what they just seen. You get a little glory. I mean, you gotta. selling's the art of pro wrestling. Without selling, pro wrestling, it's gymnastics. I mean, that's really all it is.
Right. That's good. That's a good word. It is.
And I'm the same way. Like I said, I don't mind it as long as you sell stuff, you make it make sense, it's logical. But I'm not big on spot after spot after spot after spot. There comes a point where what gets me nowadays is you'll see these guys do these magnificent spots during the match and not win the match, and then something stupid, a body slam. They'll finally get a pin on a DDT or something. Well, what did you do all? Why didn't you save that big shit for the final climax? You know, it just don't make no sense to me, man. Once you've done kicked out, if I done kicked out of your finisher 4 times, I think you need to do a different move to me to pin me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I just don't understand it, dude. But it is what it is. You got to move with the times. It ain't never going back.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with moving with the times, because there is a lot more flamboyancy. And, you know, if they'd have turned the music on and Rowdy Red Roberts come out of the dressing room, people would have had a heart attack when I was a kid, you know. and a lot of times they didn't wear ring jackets. They get in the ring, Leonard Fielding saying, this corner weighing 242 pounds from Jackson, Tennessee, Lavon Stone. And in this corner from Nashville, Tennessee, weighing 210 pounds, Jesse Morales, your referee, Muley Gonzalez. And that was it.
Right.
That was all you had.
And that's really all you needed.
And you got a lot more wrestling during them times, too, because they didn't waste 5 minutes getting somebody's butt to the ring.
Dude, the entrances now on WWE, the entrances take up more time than the matches do. I mean,
I agree.
I really watch very little WWE. If there's something, if I see a thumbnail on YouTube or something that catches my attention, I might go watch that specific segment. But man, 3 hours of Raw, I can't sit through it, man. It's just too much, and it's too much dead time. Not enough action, too much intros, too much other bullshit.
Well, this is what Daryl Bruff would do if they called tomorrow and said, you're running WWE. I would have 2 hours of Raw. If I'm going to have 3 hours of television, I'd have 2 hours of Raw, and I'd have 1 hour of ladies.
I think that would work because
they've got enough ladies that don't get enough work. So, you know, you could do that. And then there's your answer to competition to WOW, which I feel sorry for the pro girls that are on WOW because they got so many untrained actresses on there. It makes the pro girls look bad sometimes. Right. Just my personal opinion.
But I like that idea, Daryl. I think you're nail on the spot. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. 2 hours of Raw. And then I'd love to have another third hour be a whole different show. The women would be great, man. It would be a change, man. It's just too much. It's too long. And that's like these live shows. I'm not going to WrestleMania now and having to go 2 nights if I want to see it all, and then having to be there, spend 10 hours each night there to see the whole show. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to say, if I want to watch it, I'm going to sit at home and have the best seat in the house where I ain't watching half of it live on the Titantron, you know?
Yep. I know what you're saying.
Well, look, Daryl, we're getting close. We're fixing to have to start wrapping it up, but I got one final question for you, and I know it's going to be a hard one. There's a lot of candidates. From the time you started wrestling to right now, who is absolutely 100% your favorite pro wrestler ever?
Man or woman?
Don't matter. Whoever's your favorite is fine.
My favorite wrestler, well, I always have 5. But of those 5, can I give you the 5?
I'll tell you what, give me your number 1 favorite and then run me down the list. That'll work just fine, Daryl.
Right. My number 1 favorite would be Terry Funk.
Good choice, man. It's hard to go wrong with Funk.
My number 2 would be Lawler. And number 3 would be Eddie Gilbert.
Man.
Number 4, believe it or not, would be Kurt Angle. And then my number 5 would be Ric Flair.
That's a who's who.
Ric Flair, man. Not Ric Flair today. Ric Flair from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I don't think nobody wants the Ric Flair today, dude. I'll be honest with you.
Well,
But hey,
I watched that last match, and it was one over the limit because his last match before that should have been his last match.
right. Now that's a hell of a list. That's a Mount Rushmore of talent, man. I actually got to meet Eddie Gilbert at the studio, probably maybe 4 or 5 months before he actually died.
Yeah.
One and only time I ever met him. And then it wasn't but a few months later he was gone, went to Puerto Rico, and then he was dead. Eddie Gilbert's.
I was just say him and Sam Lowe were like that, and I got to know Eddie really well during that. Nothing like J.D. McKay. J.D. knew him real well, but I knew him enough, and even me and my ex-wife were at El Chico's. You notice I liked El Chico a lot. We were at El Chico's in Jackson, and Eddie come in. I said, "Hey, you want to join us?" He said, No, I'm meeting somebody. So about 20 minutes after we'd been sitting there, and he'd been sitting there, nobody come in. So he come over and he says, "Well, Daryl, you mind if I come sit with y'all?" I said, "No, come on, Eddie." And I introduced him to my ex-wife. I call her Lord Butt. But anyway, long story short, he got up and ate and left, and she said, "Well, he ain't nothing like he is on television."
Right. Hey, Eddie's one of my favorites, man.
Oh, Eddie was a genius.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. Lawler.
Could you imagine Eddie Gilbert booking in this world today?
Wow. Man, yeah, he was a good booker too. And see, that's something I didn't realize until later on, after he was dead and after I'd been in the business a while and it kind of really smartened up to the business itself. Man, it's kind of like Bill Dundee. Until YouTube come out and you start seeing all of these real old footages of Bill Dundee and stuff, you don't really realize the impact Bill Dundee had on the pro wrestling world if you don't see that and don't know nothing about that stuff,
Yeah.
Eddie was always one of my favorites. Lawler's probably my favorite.
Dundee had a great mind for booking too now, because he went down there, Bill watching them. I think they're not doing very good, and I think 83 or 84. Randy Hales would have to tell you the exact date, but Memphis and them kind of swapped some talents, and I need not say, and Dundee was booking, and I need not say Mid-South come out ahead in that deal, because Memphis lost a lot of their good talent down there and didn't get the talent back they gave. I can promise you. Right.
Well, Daryl, man, it's been my pleasure. I appreciate you coming on, giving me your time. I know it's a big football day for you, man. I appreciate you snatching an hour out and giving it to me, dude.
You're welcome.
Always a pleasure, man.
I enjoyed every second of it. Thank you again.
You're welcome, my friend, and you have a good rest of your New Year's and enjoy slowing down and pulling back a little bit, man.
Well, Happy New Year's, you and your sweet wife. Y'all have a great, good year too.
Thank you, man. You take it easy.
All right, brother. Bye.
All right, y'all, right there. Daryl Bruff, Thomas Bruff, whatever you want to call him. Liberty Pro Women's Wrestling. He's the owner of it, man. You need to go check him out. If you're a fantasy booker out there, here's your opportunity. You can book this match. You get the pencil. You can do whatever you want within their parameters. And look, guys, Happy New Year to everybody. It's a brand new year, 2024. We kicked it off on the very first day, and tomorrow night, I got one of the biggest, baddest tag teams around. They got a big show coming up this Saturday night in Hohenwald, Tennessee at TriStar Wrestling. At 7 o'clock tomorrow night, I got Bad Omen, Coco Anderson, and Big Mike Jablonski. That's a show you do not want to miss. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your New Year's Day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.